Doc. You disintegrated Einstein.
Calm down, Marty. I didn't disintegrate anything. The molecular structure of both Einstein and the car are completely intact.
Back to the Future. The evolution of the time machine. When most people think about Back to the Future, one of the first images that comes to mind is that shiny silver DeLorean speeding down the street, leaving fiery tire tracks as it blasts into another era. It's become an iconic piece of pop culture, almost as famous as the characters themselves. But believe it or not, the DeLorean wasn't always the plan, and fans might have missed this detail. In fact, the time machine originally had a very different, much less flashy form, something that might surprise even longtime fans. In the early drafts of the script, the time machine wasn't even a car. It was actually envisioned as a time chamber of sorts, and at one point, the concept was that the time travel device would be housed inside a refrigerator. Yes, a refrigerator. The idea was that the characters would climb into this big, bulky machine to travel through time. It had a more sci-fi laboratory feel, closer to the kind of thing you'd expect in a 50s B-movie. But while this might have made sense in terms of science fiction tropes, it lacked the energy and excitement that the movie was aiming for. Plus, it wasn't exactly practical. How would you move a refrigerator around to different places to set up time travel adventures? This is where the idea of mobility really started to reshape the film. The filmmakers, Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale, realized that a stationary machine like a fridge wouldn't give the story the dynamism it needed. Imagine Doc Brown trying to cart a refrigerator to a lightning-struck clock tower. Yeah, not quite the same thrill. They needed something that could move, something cool, and preferably something a teenager would be fascinated by. Enter the DeLorean. The DeLorean DMC-12 was already a standout car in real life. Its sleek, stainless steel body, low frame, and signature gull-wing doors made it look futuristic. Even if it had already been discontinued by the time filming started, it looked like it could fly through time even before any special effects were added. The filmmakers jumped on it. It wasn't just about style either. It was also about adding personality to the machine. By turning the time machine into a car, they made it more than just a plot device. It became a character in its own right. Choosing the DeLorean also allowed for some pretty unforgettable moments in the film. The dramatic scenes where the car speeds up to 88 miles per hour, the trail of fire left behind, and the flux capacitor glowing inside, it all added to the magic and visual excitement. The DeLorean made time travel feel cool and dangerous and fun. That car helped sell the whole concept of the movie, especially to younger audiences who probably cared more about adventure than technical plausibility. It's almost hard to imagine Back to the Future without the DeLorean. It's so deeply tied to the identity of the film that the thought of a refrigerator doing the time traveling feels almost absurd now. But that's the beauty of the creative process. Ideas evolve, often for the better. Now, you might find it hard to believe now, but Back to the Future wasn't an instant hit behind the scenes. Let's dig into that unbelievable fact: the initial rejection. The film's journey to the big screen was pretty rocky at first. When Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale came up with the idea, it was fresh, exciting, and totally different from anything else out there. But studios weren't quite sure what to make of it. The story involved time travel, quirky characters, and a blend of sci-fi and comedy that didn't fit neatly into one category. This made a lot of executives nervous. They couldn't figure out how to market something so unconventional. Zemeckis and Gale pitched the idea to multiple studios, but the responses were mostly no. Some thought the concept was too weird. Others worried it was too complicated for general audiences. A few said the characters, especially the young Marty McFly, wouldn't resonate, or that the special effects needed would be too expensive or difficult to pull off convincingly. The tone of the film was also tricky. It mixed humor with real stakes, and balancing that is no small feat. Studios often prefer safer bets, and this script felt like a risk. What really kept the project alive was the persistence and belief from a few key people, most notably director Robert Zemeckis and producer Steven Spielberg. Spielberg's name alone brought some serious weight and credibility. He saw the potential in the story and pushed for it to be made, helping to convince Universal Pictures to take a chance. Even then, Universal wasn't completely sold, but Spielberg's involvement gave them enough confidence to greenlight the project. Without that push, Back to the Future might have stayed stuck in development limbo forever. It's wild to think about how close the film came to never happening. Now, it's considered a classic, beloved by generations, and even sparked sequels, merchandise, and endless nostalgia. But the path wasn't smooth or guaranteed. It took stubbornness, vision, and a little bit of Hollywood magic to turn a script that many rejected into one of the most iconic movies ever made. Fox's grueling schedule. Michael J. Fox, who eventually immortalized the role, was always the first choice of director Robert Zemeckis and producer Bob Gale. However, the road to his casting was far from straightforward. At the time, Fox was committed to the hit television series Family Ties, where he played the fast-talking, conservative teenager Alex P. Keaton. The producers of the show were initially reluctant to release him, fearing that his absence would negatively impact their successful series. As a result, Fox had to decline the film offer, at least temporarily. With Fox unavailable, the role of Marty McFly was given to Eric Stoltz, a talented actor known for his dramatic intensity. For several weeks, filming proceeded with Stoltz in the lead. However, as production went on, it became increasingly clear to the filmmakers that while Stoltz was a skilled performer, his portrayal lacked the comedic timing and lighthearted energy they had envisioned for the character. The role of Marty required a balance of earnestness and humor, an ability to portray a teenager bewildered by time travel without losing charm or relatability. Ultimately, the difficult decision was made to recast the part. When Fox became available due to changes in the Family Ties shooting schedule, the filmmakers immediately seized the opportunity. Fox agreed to take on the role, even though it meant enduring an incredibly demanding schedule. By day, he filmed Family Ties, and by night, he portrayed Marty McFly in Back to the Future. For several months, he slept only a few hours a night, racing from one set to another, fueled by caffeine, adrenaline, and an unwavering commitment to his craft. Despite the exhausting workload, Fox maintained a professional attitude and delivered a performance that would become iconic in film history. Importantly, Michael J. Fox has spoken openly about his feelings toward Eric Stoltz and the unusual circumstances of his casting. Rather than harboring any ill will, Fox has expressed admiration and respect for Stoltz's dedication and talent. The two have since developed a mutual respect, reflective of the professionalism both actors brought to a challenging situation. Fox has often acknowledged that stepping into a role already in motion came with its own unique pressures, particularly when replacing a capable actor like Stoltz. Yet, his gratitude for the opportunity never wavered. He recognized that the role of Marty McFly was a once-in-a-lifetime chance, one that would define his career and resonate with generations of moviegoers. The result of Fox's grueling dual commitment was nothing short of cinematic magic. Back to the Future became a cultural phenomenon, blending sci-fi ingenuity with heartfelt storytelling and humor. Fox's portrayal was praised for its authenticity, comic timing, and emotional depth, perfectly capturing the disorientation and wonder of a teenager thrust into the past. His chemistry with co-stars Christopher Lloyd, Leah Thompson, and Crispin Glover helped create a believable and memorable ensemble that audiences connected with instantly. Fox's efforts did not go unnoticed by his peers or the public. Industry insiders marveled at his ability to sustain two high-profile roles without compromising the quality of his work. Viewers embraced him as both Alex P. Keaton and Marty McFly, a rare dual triumph in television and film. This period marked not only a career high but also a testament to Fox's tenacity and work ethic. Even as the years have passed and Fox has faced new personal and professional challenges, most notably his ongoing battle with Parkinson's disease, his legacy remains grounded in that early example of courage, humility, and passion for storytelling. We're not done with Fox. This time, it's a beef with a co-star. Thompson's initial tensions with Michael. What fans don't always realize is that the making of that movie wasn't as smooth as it seems on screen. Behind the scenes, there were casting changes, creative disagreements, and some unexpected tension between cast members. One of the more surprising stories to come out of that time is the rocky start between Leah Thompson and Michael J. Fox. Today, they seem like the perfect on-screen duo. Fox as the plucky, lovable Marty McFly, and Thompson as his teenaged mother Lorraine, stuck in a very awkward situation thanks to some time travel hijinks. But when Fox first arrived on set, the vibe wasn't quite so warm and fuzzy. Part of the reason for that tension goes back to the film's original lead actor, Eric Stoltz. Stoltz had been cast as Marty McFly months before Fox entered the picture. The crew even shot several weeks of footage with him, and for all intents and purposes, he was Marty during the early days of filming. Leah Thompson, who was cast from the beginning as Lorraine, had already spent significant time acting opposite Stoltz, and the two had become friends. He was serious about the role, perhaps too serious in some ways. Stoltz was known for his method acting style, and he took a very intense, dramatic approach to the character. That kind of dedication can be admirable, especially in a profession as emotionally demanding as acting. So when Stoltz was let go because the filmmakers felt he just wasn't bringing the right tone to the film, it was a bit of a gut punch, especially for those like Thompson who had bonded with him. Understandably, Thompson was a little resentful. It wasn't just that a friend had been fired, it was that he had been replaced with someone who, at the time, she didn't fully respect. Michael J. Fox was a huge TV star, thanks to family ties. But in the early 80s, television and film were still considered very separate worlds. Movie stars were seen as a cut above, and TV actors often had to fight to be taken seriously in Hollywood. Thompson has admitted in interviews that she saw herself as a movie star and viewed Fox as just a TV star, which immediately created a sense of superiority and emotional distance. She wasn't rude or confrontational, but there was a definite wall between them in those early days. It didn't help that the atmosphere on set was still tense from the sudden casting change. Everyone was under pressure to reshoot scenes quickly, stay on schedule, and deliver a hit. Fox was juggling filming Back to the Future at night while still shooting Family Ties during the day, which meant he was often exhausted and running on fumes. But despite the stress, Fox brought a completely different energy to the set, one that would ultimately define the film. He had this natural charisma, a sharp comedic instinct, and an easygoing personality that started to shift the dynamic of the entire production. At first, Thompson wasn't sure what to make of him. She was used to the more serious tone that Stoltz brought to the character, and Fox's more light-hearted, playful approach took some adjusting. But as they filmed more scenes together, particularly the now famous sequences in the 50s where Lorraine awkwardly flirts with Marty, something clicked. Thompson began to realize that the humor Fox brought wasn't just funny, it was necessary. His timing was impeccable, and he had this gift for making absurd situations feel emotionally real. The whole tone of the film shifted in the best possible way. Where Stoltz had brought gravity, Fox brought levity and spark. And that, in the end, was exactly what the story needed. Over time, Thompson's opinion of Fox completely changed. She came to admire not just his talent, but his professionalism and warmth. Despite being in a tough position, coming in late to a project, working insane hours, and carrying the weight of a major motion picture, he never lost his sense of humor or his humility. Thompson has since looked back on those early days and acknowledged her own role in the initial tension. She's been open about the fact that she let her loyalty to Stoltz and her preconceived notions about TV actors cloud her judgment. It's a rare and refreshing kind of honesty in an industry that doesn't always encourage that kind of reflection. Their scenes together strike a perfect balance of awkward, sweet, funny, and bizarre. And that wouldn't have been possible without the journey they took from uneasy co-stars to mutual respect. The tension that started their working relationship eventually gave way to something deeper, an understanding of what the film needed, and a shared commitment to making it work. Lea Thompson and Michael J. Fox may not have started off as fast friends, but by the time the credits rolled, they were part of something truly timeless. Lloyd's initial hesitation. It's hard not to picture Christopher Lloyd as Doc Brown, the wild-eyed scientist with electrified hair, a lab coat, and a voice that could shift from whisper to shout in the blink of an eye when people think of the film. His portrayal of Doc is nothing short of iconic. But here's something that might surprise a lot of fans. Christopher Lloyd almost didn't play Doc Brown. In fact, he came very close to walking away from the whole project without even giving it a proper chance. At the time, Lloyd was already a seasoned actor. He had earned praise for his work on stage and had built up a solid film and television career. He was probably best known for playing the eccentric Reverend Jim on the hit sitcom Taxi, and he'd also appeared in serious films like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So when the script for Back to the Future first landed on his desk, he wasn't exactly desperate for work. According to stories from behind the scenes, Lloyd briefly skimmed the script and felt unsure about it. Whether it was the time travel storyline, the over-the-top nature of the character, or just bad timing, something about it didn't immediately click. He actually tossed the script aside, thinking it wasn't for him. It's kind of wild to imagine that for a brief moment, he was ready to say no thanks to what would become one of the most beloved movie trilogies of all time. But, as luck would have it, Lloyd reconsidered. Maybe he looked at the script again with fresh eyes. Maybe someone close to him encouraged him to give it a second look. Whatever the reason, he ended up diving a bit deeper into the story and started to realize how unique and inventive it really was. The idea of a teenager accidentally traveling 30 years into the past in a time machine built out of a DeLorean? That's not your everyday Hollywood plot. But it wasn't just the storyline that won him over. A huge part of what convinced Lloyd to take the role was the chance to work with director Robert Zemeckis. Even though Zemeckis wasn't yet the household name he would become, he already had a reputation for bold, imaginative storytelling. Lloyd could tell that this wasn't just going to be another goofy comedy. It had heart, it had excitement, and it had the potential to be something truly original. Lloyd later said that Zemeckis' passion and creative energy made a big impression on him, and that was ultimately what sealed the deal. Once filming began, it quickly became clear that Lloyd had made the right choice. He threw himself into the character of Doc Brown with full commitment, bringing to life a scientist who was brilliant, slightly unhinged, and totally lovable. His chemistry with Michael J. Fox, who played Marty McFly, was instant and electric, no pun intended. Together, they created a dynamic duo that audiences around the world would instantly fall in love with. Lloyd's unique take on Doc Brown, equal parts mad genius and kind-hearted mentor, became the emotional core of the trilogy. He wasn't just the guy who invented time travel. He was the heart of the adventure. Looking back now, it's almost impossible to imagine anyone else playing Doc Brown. Lloyd's performance is so deeply woven into the fabric of Back to the Future that the role seems like it was written just for him. And yet, it very nearly didn't happen. If Lloyd had stuck with his initial reaction and passed on the role, movie history would have taken a very different path. It's one of those fascinating what-if moments that remind us how close we sometimes come to missing out on greatness. His decision to give the project another chance turned out to be one of the best choices of his career. Back to the Future went on to become a massive hit, spawning 2 sequels, a cartoon series, a video game, and even a stage musical. And through it all, Doc Brown remains one of the most memorable and beloved characters in film history, all because Christopher Lloyd decided not to throw that script away. Remember Jennifer? Originally, the part went to actress Melora Hardin. What a lot of fans don't realize is just how much the movie changed before it became the classic we all know today. The casting of Jennifer Parker. One of the most interesting stories from behind the scenes is about the casting of Jennifer Parker, Marty's girlfriend. Most people remember Claudia Wells in the role, but she actually wasn't the first choice. At the time, Melora Hardin was a young actress with a promising future. She had already done some TV and film work and was seen as a great fit for the part of Jennifer. Smart, pretty, and capable of holding her own next to the film's original lead, Eric Stoltz. That's right. Before Michael J. Fox stepped into Marty McFly's shoes and made the role iconic, Eric Stoltz had actually been cast and had even filmed scenes for several weeks. The production was well underway with Stoltz as Marty and Hardin as Jennifer, and everyone thought things were on track. But as filming went on, the tone just didn't feel right. Stoltz, who was a more serious and dramatic actor, was playing Marty with too much intensity for what was supposed to be a fun, fast-paced sci-fi comedy. Eventually, director Robert Zemeckis and producer Bob Gale made the difficult decision to replace Stoltz with Michael J. Fox, who had been their first choice all along. It wasn't an easy call. Recasting a lead actor weeks into shooting is a massive disruption. But they knew the movie needed a different energy. When Fox came on board, everything changed. He brought a charm, wit, and comedic timing that clicked perfectly with the script. Suddenly, the film began to feel like what they'd originally envisioned. But along with that shift came a ripple effect. Other casting decisions had to be reconsidered, and unfortunately for Melora Hardin, she was caught in that wave. Hardin's dismissal had nothing to do with her performance or talent. By all accounts, she was doing a great job. But standing next to Michael J. Fox, who is about 5 feet 4 inches or 5 feet 5 inches, she looked noticeably taller. The filmmakers worried that this would look awkward on screen, especially given the romantic relationship between Marty and Jennifer. Hollywood has a long history of being overly focused on appearances, and in this case, height played a bigger role than anyone might have expected. Even though Hardin was more than capable of playing the role, the visual mismatch led to her being let go from the production. Claudia Wells, who was closer in height to Fox, and who had also auditioned for the part earlier, was brought in to replace her. Getting dropped from a major film like Back to the Future, especially when you've already started filming, could easily be devastating. For many young actors, a role like that could launch their career into the stratosphere. But to her credit, Melora Hardin didn't let it derail her. Instead, she kept working steadily and built a diverse and impressive body of work over the years. In fact, she went on to become well known in her own right, thanks to standout roles in television. Most people today probably recognize her as Jan Levinson from The Office, where she played the tightly wound, sometimes unhinged corporate executive who had a famously chaotic relationship with Michael Scott. That role brought her a whole new wave of fans and showed just how talented and versatile she really is. She also had a recurring role on the hit series Monk, where she played Trudy, the late wife of the main character, and appeared in various other film and TV projects. Hardin's career has proven to have remarkable staying power, and while she may not have gotten to star in one of the most iconic movies of the 80s, she still made her mark in Hollywood. In interviews, she's talked about the experience of being let go from Back to the Future. And while she admits it was disappointing at the time, she doesn't seem bitter. Instead, she's used it as part of her story, a reminder that sometimes things don't work out the way you expect, but that doesn't mean you won't still find success. The casting changes that took place during the production of Back to the Future ended up shaping the movie in a big way. Michael J. Fox brought a totally different vibe to Marty McFly, and Claudia Wells played off of him well as Jennifer. The 40th Anniversary Reunion. Man, can you believe it's been 40 years since Back to the Future first blasted onto the big screen? Time really does fly, especially when you're talking about a movie that's all about time travel. In 2025, fans and film buffs got the ultimate treat when the main cast reunited at Fan Expo New Orleans to celebrate this incredible milestone. Michael J. Fox, Leah Thompson, Christopher Lloyd, Thomas F. Wilson, and even Huey Lewis all came together for what was basically a nostalgia-packed party. It was like stepping back into the 80s, but with a 2025 twist, and you could feel the excitement buzzing in the air. Michael J. Fox, who played the unforgettable Marty McFly, was as charismatic and quick-witted as ever. He shared some hilarious behind-the-scenes stories, like the crazy stunts and tight filming schedules that made shooting such an adventure. Hearing him talk about those early days reminded everyone why Marty was, and still is, such an iconic character. Leah Thompson, who brought Lorraine McFly to life, reflected on how the film really shaped her career and how surreal it was to see something she worked on so long ago still having such a huge impact. She also mentioned how much fun it was to reconnect with the cast after all these years and relive those moments that felt like just yesterday. Christopher Lloyd, the legendary Doc Brown himself, was a highlight of the reunion. His energy and passion for the character didn't seem to have aged a bit. He reminisced about the challenges of playing such a quirky, brilliant scientist and how much he loved the story's mix of humor, heart, and sci-fi thrills. You could tell he genuinely appreciated the fans' love for the movie and how it continued to inspire new generations. Thomas F. Wilson, aka Biff Tannen, brought a playful, villainous vibe to the event, joking about how much fun it was to be the bad guy and how he still gets recognized for the role everywhere he goes. His stories about working with the cast and crew were funny and gave a peek into the tight-knit bond they all share. And then there was Huey Lewis. Yep, the Huey Lewis of The Power of Love fame, who talked about how the song became inseparable from the movie's identity. He joked about how he never expected that track to become such a cultural phenomenon, and how grateful he was to be part of something that meant so much to so many people. The whole reunion felt like a big family reunion, with everyone sharing laughs, memories, and genuine appreciation for the film that changed their lives. The event wasn't just about reminiscing, though. The cast and fans also talked about the timeless themes of Back to the Future: friendship, courage, and the idea that our choices shape our destiny. Even 4 decades later, those messages still resonate. It was clear that the movie's blend of humor, heart, and sci-fi adventure has made it a classic that keeps drawing people back. Kind of like Marty's time-traveling DeLorean. And the fans in New Orleans were living proof of that. Young and old, everyone there had a story about what the movie meant to them. The 40th anniversary reunion was a perfect celebration of Back to the Future's legacy. It wasn't just about looking back, it was about honoring a film that continues to inspire and entertain. Seeing the cast reunited, sharing their stories and smiles, was a reminder that some movies don't just survive the test of time. They thrive in it. And for all of us lucky enough to witness that day, it felt like we were part of a really special moment in pop culture history. Who knows? Maybe in another 40 years, we'll be talking about the 80th anniversary reunion and wondering where the time went all over again. Are you a fan of the film too? If you figured some of these, let us know in the comments. Subscribe for more fun and interesting uploads.